that's what the coolest thing about sobriety is. I was telling a kid this today. It's like when I was using, I can tell you with absolute certainty what I am doing today, tomorrow, the next day, the day before. I can tell you that. But with sobriety, I have no idea what can happen tomorrow.
That was Jed Payne, and this is the SHAiR Podcast.
It's time for the SHAiR Recovery Podcast, where we bring you amazing life-changing success stories from addicts and alcoholics all over the world who share their inspiring journey in recovery. And now, here's your host,
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the SHAiR Podcast. And today we have Jed Payne joining us on the show. And Jed is the host of Church and Other Drugs, and his story is truly unbelievable. The best part is that even though, for all intents and purposes, this man should be dead, he not only has recovered and living a life in recovery, he is now working as a drug and alcohol counselor at a treatment center. In this episode, we watch Jed's life turn around full circle. It's a hell of a ride. So let's dive into Jed's story, but first, a quick message from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by SHAiR, the Empowerment Network. If you're at a crossroads in your life and have come to the realization that you need a change, a real change in your life, it could be that you've lost confidence in yourself. It could be that no matter how hard you try, you can't seem to find the way to stop drinking. On the outside, it looks like everything's fantastic. Maybe you've got a great career, a beautiful marriage, beautiful kids, and yet you're unhappy. Maybe you worry more about what other people think about you than how you think about you, how you see yourself. If you've dug a hole for yourself and you just can't seem to find your way out, then SHAiR may just be the perfect place for you. My name's Omar Pinto. I'm the host and the founder of the SHAiR Podcast and the founder of SHAiR, the Empowerment Network. I'm a recovery coach and a life coach. I have 20 years of business experience, 15 years of recovery experience, and 47 years of life experience. I help people reclaim their identity, tap into their authenticity, and rediscover their purpose in life. For more information and for a 15-minute free, no obligation consultation with me, go to www.shairspace.net. Remember, SHAiR is spelled SHAiR, and sign up today to find out if SHAiR is the right fit for you. SHAiR, it's time to believe in yourself again. And for those of you that are looking for the perfect recovery gift to give to yourself or to a friend in recovery, then go to www.allrecoveryrings.com. At All Recovery Rings, you can have any recovery medallion beautifully transformed into a ring you can wear on your finger. All you need to do is select the medallion of your choice, submit your ring size, and All Recovery Rings will create the perfect ring for you. So go to www.allrecoveryrings.com and order your recovery ring today. And if you'd like to support the SHAiR Podcast by making a donation, then go to the website www.theshairpodcast.com. Remember to spell SHAiR, SHAiR. Go to the top right corner of the website where it says donate, or click on any of the yellow donate buttons throughout the website and make your donation today. And for those of you who love listening to the SHAiR Podcast and want to enhance your recovery, then join us in our SHAiR Facebook private group, the SHAiR Recovery Network. In this free Facebook private group, you will meet thousands of people in recovery that are loving, caring, and being of service. If you're struggling in your recovery or you're struggling in life, then this might be the perfect place for you. The purpose of the SHAiR Recovery Network is to discuss recovery in all of its facets, in all of its pathways, in a way that is attractive and all-inclusive. So to join us in this Facebook private group, go to Facebook, go to the search bar, type in SHAiR Recovery Network, and our private Facebook group will pop right up. So join us today. And if you haven't done so already, don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. It's one of the best ways to show your support for the podcast. Now, a quick message from Transitions Daily, and then on to the show. Would you like to join a free, anonymous online group that offers a daily topic email with popular recovery resources, accompanied by a secret Facebook group for discussion? Then go to dailyaaemails.com for more information about Transitions Daily. And don't forget to share dailyaaemails.com with friends, in meetings, and with sponsees in recovery. Hey, Jed, thanks for joining us.
What's up? Oh, no problem.
I'm excited to have you on the show, buddy. How you feeling, man?
I'm good, man. I thought I was getting sick today, but I'm just mentally telling myself I'm not. Flu's going around. I hate it, man. I can't stand being sick.
Oh, I hear you. You know, what I hate is taking cold medicine.
Yes.
Number one, I already feel like shit and I'm already not 100%. Then I take some kind of cold medicine and then I'm like at 50%, right? And, you know, there was a time in my life where that was fun. And today, that ain't it.
Oh, I know. And every time I go, there's this one urgent care I go to, and every time, no matter how many times I tell him I'm a drug addict, he gives me syrup. Every time. Every single time.
Yeah, this isn't going to affect your clean time. Just go ahead. Just take this stuff. He's
like, oh, okay, good. I'm glad you're sober. So here's this Tussinex.
They want to get you out of there as quickly as humanly possible.
Yes.
That is the goal. All right, so folks, today we have Jed Payne joining us on the SHAiR podcast. Jed is the host of Church and Other Drugs, and I had the honor of being featured on that podcast. I think it was episode number 34, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right.
Excellent. All right, so let's dive right in, buddy. So first of all, Jed, tell us what your normal daily routine looks like, including recovery.
Today, well, I just actually started. I wake up. This time in recovery, I started the habit of I hit my knees, say a quick prayer, brew the coffee. I just started drinking bulletproof coffee. That's where it's at.
Dude, it's delicious too.
It's where it's at. Drive to work, man. I just switched jobs. I actually started. I am a counselor in training at a adolescent treatment center for substance abuse.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's what I've been working for. So it's pretty tight. I literally just started like a month ago.
Oh my God, dude, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
Any interesting stories since you've been there?
Oh my God.
Too many.
Too many. Well, I mean, like I think my first week there, I had to strip search a kid, and we found he was hiding a lighter up his butt.
Oh,
so dude. That I was like, well, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, I can't, I don't even know if it's more like being a jail warden or...
It's a little bit of that. I mean, it's 14 to 17-year-olds.
Okay.
Adolescent boys, dude. Like...
That is something special.
Something special, yeah. It's straight. I think the first week I was there, I called my mom and I was just like, I'm so sorry. Like for what I know I've said it before, but like, so sorry for what I did back then.
I so get it, dude. I so get it,
Yeah.
I just finished. I was working at Costa Rica Recovery for about 4 months, and it is a trip, dude. It is a trip. I mean, there is that huge dichotomy between, the amazing amount of service work that we do and helping other people, and then just the absolute stress and feeling of like... Dude. Overwhelmed and just like, do these people even give a shit? Do they even want to hear anything I have to say? So
and I'm a big empathetic person, and I'm a bleeding heart, man. So I really take on these people's problems as my own. So it's like that's pretty much what I've been. My main thing this first year is gonna be learning how to like separate.
Yeah. You have to because you get real close with these guys, and it's cool at first, but then the addict comes out of them, and then they start to hey, do I really have to do this? You think you can pull some strings? Then you start hearing that kind of shit, and you're like, oh, I did it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, cool. We'll jump into that a little bit later as we get closer to the end of your story. But how much clean time do you have, and when is your anniversary date?
My birthday is September 23rd of 2014, so a little over 3 years.
Excellent. Yeah, you just celebrated 3 years.
Awesome. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's very awesome.
All right. And what's your spiritual practice? Do you have a regular spiritual? I usually like to ask my guests, how they maintain their spiritual condition. Do you have like a spiritual practice, or how does that look for you?
I do. So I'm a practicing Christian. So I got my I do half and half church and AA. So I got my church on Sundays. I have a small group on Wednesdays, and I have a little like read through the Bible in a year app. So I do that every morning, and then that's like what my prayer life is centered around.
Excellent.
So
Cool.
yeah, that's a huge part.
Yeah,
Huge
I don't know why such people. Well, I'm not gonna know what. I'm not gonna say why. I'm not gonna say. I'm just gonna say that the spiritual component has been the single most important element to my recovery. I remember early on struggling so badly, and then doing what they told me to do. Just pray, ask for guidance, just pray, ask for help, just pray. Just pray. You know what I mean? Hit your knees, that kind of a thing. And yeah, at first it's awkward and it's weird, but then shit just starts to move, man. Like
exactly. Once you get that first result.
Yes.
That's
and
it.
It's like, oh my God, like there's something out there.
Yeah.
And that's just like, it's just something that, it takes a while to cultivate. But once you get there, if you're honest about it, like if you're open-minded and willing, then the miracles will happen.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I love hearing that because, I think more people need to hear that.
And what's hilarious to me, especially nowadays, are people that are like, I'm not going to pray, but like, I'll go consult my crystals under the moonlight and stuff. It's like, come on, dude. Like it's that ridiculous. I think that's where people get tripped up. The biggest thing I tell my guys is, because everyone's got this idea of monks praying in this crazy formal thing. And I'm like, look, man, when you feel like using, just say, hey, guy, like, can you help me not want to use? Like, that's a prayer. Like, just talk to him like you're talking to anyone else, man. It does not have to be this thing.
That's exactly right. But even the crystals thing, if they can connect with that, I don't give a shit what you're praying to, right? You could be praying to a pile of rocks or crystals or whatever the case may be. If you believe that there is a entity, a power, a universe, something stronger, higher, bigger that can help me, then it doesn't really matter. Because I'm not a person that buys into organized religion, but the spiritual component is me and my higher power, and that's it, man. And I do it every single morning. I say, God help me. You know what I mean? Help me get through the day. Help me be the best version of myself. Help me get out of my own way. And help the most amount of people, right? And I get intuitively guided, which is very cool. So I always encourage people, dude, if you can catch on to this, it'll change your life. It will. Oh yeah,
and I'd always try to make clear that that while I have like a specific idea of my higher power and stuff, like it's whatever, man. That's literally just for me, and I don't push it on anyone. Which a lot of people use that as the excuse of like, well, I don't want to be religious. Like, well, you don't have to be religious.
It's when somebody is just using it as an excuse. I've noticed that too, because I give them every conceivable out so that it has to remove all the dogma and stigma attached to religion, all of it. And still they backpedal. So they're just looking for an excuse, right? Because they know that's the easiest way to say, I would really work this program if it wasn't for that.
Right.
And there's no way to prove or disprove that element. So, that's going to be the toughest part. And then I'm like, all right, well, I'll catch you later.
Yeah, exactly.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, see you in a little bit.
All right. So tell us, Jed, what it was like the first time you drank or used drugs, and more importantly, how they made you feel before we dive into your story.
Yeah. So the first time I drank was uneventful. I think I was camping. Me and my friend were camping with both of our dads, and they were drinking beer. I'm like, hey, can we have a sip? And they're like, yeah. And they thought it was funny, and I thought it was disgusting. So that wasn't really eventful. First time I smoked weed, also uneventful. Who knows? I probably wasn't inhaling and all that jazz. Probably wasn't doing it right. My first moment where I was like, oh my gosh, this is like what drugs are, or this is what a high experience was on Triple C's DXM cough medicine. Ironically, speaking of being sick, that was my first like, holy shit, this is incredible. Like, I want to do this.
Dude, I've heard horror stories about that DMX shit or DXM shit.
Yeah.
Whatever, dude. Sorry, DMX. So the DXM, like, I only know about that 12 years into recovery, right? Maybe even longer. Like 12 years into recovery, where somebody was telling me about their son. They'd emailed me about their son who was on the DXM cough medicine. Yep. I'm like, what is that?
That was our generation thing for sure.
Wow. For sure. It. All right. Jed, you're all warmed up, buddy. So it's time for me to turn the show over to you. It's time for you to share your story, the battle with drugs and alcohol, the wreckage it caused in your life, when you hit rock bottom, and then finally your journey into recovery up until today. So Jed, take it away, brother.
So I think I'll frame it. So leading up to my first treatment, and then I'll just fast forward to my last. I think that'll be the easiest way because
there's a lot, huh?
Oh my God.
But don't miss any of the stuff you told me in our last interview, because that was good shit, dude.
Oh yeah. I try to do, there's always new things. So I try to find the,
all right. Okay. Bring the new stuff.
Bring the new stuff. So I was raised in a very religious home. It was I've had an awesome childhood. No complaints, but I was always a super sensitive kid. Probably had some anxiety stuff from the get-go. And what I remember about my religious upbringing was just that God, that I'm a sinner. God punishes sin, and I do sinful things, especially related to sex. I don't know if that's what I was told. That's just what I heard. And that's what was like ingrained in me. So that was kind of my baseline. So I've always had this just guilt, this vague guilt.
Yep. I know exactly. I'm very familiar with that one.
Yes. So that like came to a head when I was about 11, and I developed this like anxiety disorder where I would like I would sniff out of my nose, and I would blink my eyes, kind of like facial tics.
Okay. Yeah.
And I got misdiagnosed with Tourette's syndrome, and they put me on this hardcore antipsychotic medicine when I was 11. So kind of how my mom was the type where like, if you're sick, you go to the doctor, you take a pill. There's something wrong with me emotionally, I went to a psychiatrist. So I've been seeing psychiatrists and therapists since I was 10 or 11. So it wasn't until I started doing drugs that the relief finally came. That was really the only thing that slowed my mind down, or like let me take my mind in a direction I wanted it to go, right? But I still had this like religious Christian mentality. So like my friends were using moderately, but I had this idea that I knew, or I thought that one day I was going to quit because I knew what I was doing was wrong. So I better just get everything in like quickly. Like my friends are, they're just smoking daily because they're planning on doing this the rest of their life. I'm going to need to like snort cocaine because I'm going to have to stop this party like when I'm 21. So that was, so the delusions started very early, right?
Well, it's nice when you can plan ahead though.
Isn't it though? Like I had a 6-year plan.
The 6-year cocaine plan.
Well, and I remember, so we got into, we watched Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. We started listening to like Modest Mouse and Widespread Panic, got into mushrooms and acid and, experiment stuff. And then on my 15th birthday, my friend brought over cocaine. And I remember him to this day. He was like, now, Jed, this isn't like other drugs. It's not just something. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. Cool. It's just like weed. Sure. Whatever. And so that was the first time I did cocaine. And that started a run where that was the first time I started stealing to support my habit. And so I was completely flying under the radar because I had an older sister and she was going through her rebellious phase. And I was such a goody two shoes up to that point that my parents just didn't even think to look for any kind of signs that I was screwing up. And, there was still like, if stuff was missing around the house, they just thought it was missing. Like the level of trust was still there. And then I had my first overdose, which should, the red flags are just all over the place, right? So I had my first overdose at 15 with Benadryl.
Benadryl?
Benadryl. Yeah. I'm sure there's some people out there that know what I'm talking about. That, like I said, is my generation, man. Ironically, my mom caught me with weed. She started drug testing me. So I went to the internet and found things that wouldn't show up on a drug test that you can get high off of. So that kind of, that kind of took me down a path. Like quitting wasn't an option. I had to get high, but I had to find stuff that wouldn't show up.
Right. Genius.
So that was rehab number 1. Wound me up in an outpatient, but it was just me and all my friends. So we just kind of, it was kind of a joke. It was somewhere to go hang out after school. Things escalated because once you start getting into that world, I got introduced to NA, but my quote sponsor ended up asking me to buy him weed. So I was like, oh, so this 12-step thing is a big joke. So this was like my introduction to the world of recovery, which was not a good one, right?
Not at all, dude. In my 14 years in Narcotics Anonymous, I have yet to have anyone, ask me to cop dope for them.
Yeah, my sponsor.
That sucks, dude. That sucks because, what are the odds? Because that's a very, and I'm sure now that shit that's not a norm.
No.
And what a horrible first experience.
Oh, dude. Well, it's because I looked for the guy I thought was the coolest. And at that time, in that mindset, the coolest was like the dude in the very back, like dressed in all black. I was like, that guy. He looks awesome. So using escalated in high school. And this is when I started to notice that I was diverging from my friends. People were starting to want to hang out with me less and less. And things got bad enough that I needed to go to an inpatient treatment. So this was I was 16, going on 17, my senior year, and I got put on a waiting list, a 4-month waiting list. And so during that time, I was like, well, I got 4 months left to do what I want to do. So I was like, well, I've never done heroin, so I wanted to go try to find some heroin, logically, right? And I was like, but I'm just going to snort it. And I found someone to give me heroin, and they were like, well, you should just shoot it up. And I was like, okay. And I let them shoot me up. And so by the time I got to my first inpatient, I absolutely needed to be there.
Right. So
I finished there. It was a fundamentalist Christian treatment center in the mountains of North Carolina. They did like exorcisms and very intense. It was very interesting. It was a very unique experience. I'll just call it that. It was unique.
Actual exorcism?
Yeah. They called it deliverance class.
Get the fuck out of here.
So
dude, that
I've
is
tried
creepy.
Basically every method possible.
Oh my God.
Do you want to hear how they did it?
Bring it, dude. Because I just fast forward, please, because I started thinking about that fucking movie Deliverance. So
it was weird. Like, yeah, no, it wasn't like that. Thank God.
Yeah. Give us better details.
So you go in a classroom and everyone's sitting down and they give you a CD player and you put the headphones on and it's like an 8-hour pre-recorded track of the pastor like screaming at you in tongues. If you've ever heard someone speak in tongues, or like, it's just like, like crazy shit.
Dude, really? So, you can't make this shit up.
I'm being dead serious.
Oh my.
So,
what the fuck?
What's supposed to happen is when you start to feel something, you're supposed to raise your hand. The pastor will come over and a couple other people will come over and they'll start praying over you. And so I thought I felt something and I raised my hand and the pastor came over. And the only thing I'll say about the experience is that when he put his hand on my back, his hand felt like super hot. Like I did not like him touching my back. That's kind of the only like supernatural thing I'll say that like happened with that experience. I did see some people, I don't know. There was some crazy stuff. I did see some stuff. Like, I don't think it's all, I don't know, man. It's a unique experience. I'll just leave it at that.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm like, what else, man? This is crazy. Here's the thing, when you go down certain rabbit holes, all right, the mind is a powerful thing. And when
That's what I'm saying.
And when you're connected by a belief system, okay? Like I said, if you're into it and you connect spiritually, right, you will get the benefits. And if the Latin tongues screaming in your ears, right, and they kind of walk you through the process and they make you believe that this is going to fix you. For some people, they might actually just believe that this is why they've lost their cravings or something. I don't know. I think the power of belief is pretty incredible, and that shit is crazy. I can't even imagine going through that shit and not going, well, that made a difference.
Yeah. Well, and I was freshly 17 years old. Like this was just out of a small town in South Carolina. So I was like, this is all right then. This is fucking crazy. So,
dude.
So I got out and it was a non-12 step. So there was no going to meetings. It was just kind of like, all right, you're healed. Good to go. And within a week I relapsed when I got home. So then after that, I wasn't in school because I was finishing school with a night program, and I'd just gotten graduation money. And so, like, you know, I've always been a scringer and a scrounger as far as because I wasn't one of the drug addicts that had like a $40K a year job. Like I came from never having any money. So all of a sudden I had some money and I could use like I wanted to. So I became a prodigious heroin addict. I found out that I got hepatitis C from that very first time I shot up, which is like a after school special, right?
Totally.
Like literally. And at that time I was like, well, like I'll just, I plan on dying anyway. So they have this in South Carolina, and I think other places, you're allowed to leave home when you're 17, but your parents can't kick you out. So it's kind of like you have like a year of some weird legal loophole. So I just told my mom, I was like, look, I was dating an older girl. I was like, look, I'm just going to move down with her out of here and I'm just going to go do drugs. I'll see you later. So they were trying to get me into treatment because I needed to get treated for my hep C, but they won't treat you if you're still using drugs. Go figure, crazy doctors and their rules.
Oh, unbelievable.
So I spent a summer, got into IV cocaine then and just spent a horrible summer and got this girl on heroin. And of course it just ended horrifically. And by the end of the summer, I called my parents and I was like, I'm ready to go. So I moved to Baton Rouge, Louisiana to go to a 11-month intensive treatment center. During that time, I started, this was back in 2005, and the treatment for hep C was something called interferon Pegasus, which is essentially like a chemotherapy. You inject yourself and you feel like you have the flu for 4 days, once a week, and you do that for 56 weeks. And 1 out of 10 patients commit suicide as a side effect. Dude, which is crazy. That's insane.
That's insane,
isn't it though? And so they part of the treatment is they put you on an antidepressant and da 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 da. So I'm almost a year into this treatment. I graduate rehab, and it's really starting to mess with my mind. I notice I get a girlfriend, and I get a chance to go home back to South Carolina for a weekend pass, right? So I go home, and I end up meeting up with the old girlfriend that I ran away with. We ended up sleeping together, and I go back, didn't think anything of it. A couple months later, I get a call from her and she says she's pregnant. And so combined with the place my head was at, like I was sober and I wasn't really telling anyone, but I was like losing my shit mentally. Probably the biggest regret is I convinced her to have an abortion. As much as I have that power, I convinced her to have an abortion, right? And she went through with it, and when she told me she did, it was impossible to hide like my distraughtness. So I had to tell my new girlfriend what had happened, and it was like she was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "Oh, my ex-girlfriend had an abortion." She's like, "I'm so sorry," and I was like, "No, you don't understand. Like, it was mine. Like, I cheated on you," and she just fucking flipped out, threw me out,
dude. This is why you have to talk to your sponsor first before you're rigorously honest.
Bro, I don't even think I had a sponsor.
No. Trust me, I know. You were fucking loaded.
Dude. No, well, at this point I wasn't.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, this is what did it though. So after that, I was like, well, fuck. If this is sobriety, like I am out of here. And so went on a mission to kill myself, and all my friends from rehab intervened on me and got me back into treatment, and the doctors took me off the medicine early. And so I recovered from all that. And this really started the cycle of the treatment center. They always used to joke that I should do like a Fedora's travel guide for rehabs, right? Because like I give the food like a 6.2, the lodging is 6. So I didn't have a place to live because my parents weren't, in their words, there's no way in hell like we're risking you overdosing and us finding you. Like, sorry, so you can't live with us. And I was like, nah, okay, I get that. So they would call the treatment centers when I relapsed, and they'd be like, well, what do we do? And they'd be like, well, send them to another treatment center. And so I just kind of got stuck in this loop where I would have, I'd go to treatment 90 days. I'd finish all my treatment centers, and like there was a desire to want to stay clean, but I would just get out. My cycle was I would get out, get involved in a relationship, let the emotions get the best of me. The relationship would end. I can't handle that kind of, or I didn't want to handle that raw of emotions, and I would relapse again. And every relapse would end in these horrible catastrophes. And the worst one was I got, ironically, my doctor prescribed me this stuff that was supposed to be like non-abusable, but I found out if you drink with it, it was abusable. I was living with these 2 girls from church, bless their hearts, that let me, I'd gotten kicked out of my Oxford house, and they let me stay with them. And so it was a Sunday night, and they were like, hey, we're going to church. Do you want to come with us? And I was like, no, I'm going to stay here because I had these pills and I had this plan and I was going to take them. I took the pills. The only things I remember was I went to Walmart because I was going to go steal some DVDs. And I got to Walmart and I started feeling, I was like, man, I do not feel right. So I started driving home, and like the world started shaking when I was driving. And I was like, what is happening? And I get home, I managed to put on my pajama pants. And the last thing I remember was laying down on this couch and seeing Man vs. Wild. Like that was always burned in my mind. And I laid on this big old white leather couch. And that's the last thing I remember. What had happened was I went into something called a catatonic seizure. And when I started the seizure, I hit my head on the glass table and busted my head open, and then just started slinging blood all over their apartment, all over the couch. So it just looked like this crazy murder scene. Right. And I was in a coma for 4 days. And the crazy part was, and they told my mom, if he wakes up, he will have brain damage. This is where I definitely started believing in miracles. But the crazy thing was, so I was in the hospital in the ICU, and there was a priest going around, I guess he's just praying for people. And when he was over my bed is when I woke up. So the last thing I remember is Man vs. Wild. The next thing I know, I'm opening my eyes and I see 3 people. I've only been confirmed that the priest was there. And I just see this dude as a priest. So I think I'm dead because I don't know, like, I guess I thought priest heaven or whatever. All right. And so I open my eyes and just start crying. And I'm sure I freaked this dude the hell out because he's just praying over coma patients, right? And here one just pops up. Right. Yeah.
This is fantastic.
Oh, dude.
This is a story. You're killing me.
So, man, I get back into treatment.
How old are you at this time?
That time I was like, I think I just turned 21, 22.
Okay, so man, still super young and just
super young,
beat to death by the disease.
And I think it was something like I'm an overdoser. So 8 times I've been to the hospital. There was a coma I was in that I'd completely forgot about. One of my podcast guests, he was like, don't you remember that time you were in a coma? And I was like, no. And he was so.
I was in a coma. How was I supposed to remember?
That's what I'm saying. I think like the consequences I was having, they weren't really visceral for me because I fucking don't remember. Right?
Yeah.
So it was almost like, and I'm a sick narcissist in the way that the attention that stuff brings you is like very intoxicating. And like I got used to living my life in crisis mode where everyone's always worried about Jed. And then when I would get stabilized, then it's like, okay, we don't have to worry about him anymore. And I'm like, well, wait, where was all this attention? And it was always like, just it's a ton of attention. And like, this is like retroactively, I realized all this, but I got in a sick relationship with these like dramatic near-death experiences that weren't really real to me because I never really, I always landed on my feet one way or another. And then all I knew was that it just made people really care about me. When you get out of rehab, you go in looking like hell, and then you come out, you've got some weight on you, you've been exercising, and everyone's just proud of you. And I really got hooked into that cycle. Yep. I think so. I think that's why it took, the next step after that. I think I went to a couple more treatment centers, and I said, I got out and I was like, you know what? Like, screw all this. Like, y'all have been telling me what to think, when to eat. I don't even believe in drug addiction. I don't think it's a disease. I had all this knowledge about it. And I was like, I don't even believe in this anymore. I think I've just been crying wolf for the attention, but now I don't want it. Now I just want to be left alone. Like, the only reason it's a problem is because you're making it a problem. Right. And, I'd gotten prescribed Suboxone and Xanax and Adderall, and I was selling them. So I was financially self-supporting for the first time in my life. And so I called my parents and I was like,
self-supportive as a drug dealer for the first time. Dude. They were prescribing you all 3 of those meds?
Dude, it was the most crooked. I was on 32 milligrams of subs, 8 milligrams of Xanax, and 90 milligrams of Adderall per month. Like, the most crooked doctor in the world. But
God, they arrest him yet?
He died, actually.
No, the karma train hit like a motherfucker. That is not crazy, dude. That is like as poetic justice. It's unbelievable just how corrupt it is.
Oh, dude. And it wasn't just me. I can tell you that. But yeah, I called to get my records for the last time I was in treatment. And they're like, yeah, he died. I was like, whoa. So anyway, so I called my parents and I was like, I don't need your money anymore. Like, this is what I'm doing. I'm just going to drink. I'm just going to smoke, and I'm going to take Suboxone, and that's it. We should have a relationship. Like, and they're like, okay, whatever. And I actually, at first, I thrived. This is the sickest I've ever been, because I was a drug dealer, but I was trying to practice the principles in drug dealing. So like, I was altruistic. Like, I was trying to live the principles of the steps while using. And I just had this really weird, enmeshed life that I thought I was like succeeding because I had money and like people liked me because I sold drugs, and I wasn't on heroin because I was on Suboxone. So I was like, all right, I have arrived. Like, this is awesome. And then I found crystal meth. Like, that's when this entered the picture.
Man.
And I had no introduction to meth and what the life of like what tweaking is like and everything that entails. And I ended up meeting the son of a sheriff who was stealing guns out of a gun locker and selling them to me for dirt cheap. So in my meth-addled brain, that seems like a great idea. So I started selling stolen firearms, and I developed a gambling addiction because all the tweakers hang out at the casino because it's open 24 hours, free drinks, you can smoke and tweak out on the machines, right? And the logic,
dude. It's a miracle you're alive, dude.
Dude, crazy. So
it's an understatement.
Yes. So this culminated with, I went to the casino one night to cash a bogus check, because it's also a check cashing place, and it didn't work. And I was like, well, shoot, how am I going to get money? And I looked at the ground, and there was a valet ticket on the ground. I was like, okay. So I picked it up and I went upstairs and I handed them the valet ticket and they handed me some car keys. And I was like, okay, free car. And so I got into the wrong car at first and tried to start it for 10 minutes before I realized it was in the wrong car. I walked out and I hit the beeper, and it was a Dodge 2500 dually bright red truck with an insane clown posse sticker on the back, like one of those giant vinyl cutout stickers.
You didn't take the car.
Oh yeah, I took the car. Absolutely,
dude. How do you miss? How do you miss that? Okay, go. Sorry. Okay, go. What the fuck?
So maybe 2 minutes after driving away, and I was like, what are you going to do with this car, Jed? Like, why did you do? What is the plan here? Do you know a guy? Like, what are you thinking? So I drove it across the street, threw the keys in it, and walked home, and forgot all about it, dude. Forgot all about it. It's a month later. Yeah, I didn't, dude. I literally, I was like, well, that was weird, and just walked. Yep. And it was a month later, and at this point, this was an absolute godsend because I'd gotten into research chemicals, and I was tripping while tweaking, and lots of talking to myself and putting loaded guns in my mouth, and just getting really in a dark place. And it was just a Sunday morning at 9:00. People were supposed to come to buy drugs. I get up, knock at the door. I'm like, customer number 1, and I open it, and it's a big old portly police officer and says, "Are you Jed?" And I was like, "Nope." And I tried to shut the door, and he reached in and handcuffed me. And like a genius, I had a loaded, cocked, and ready pistol on me. So when he turned me around to handcuff me, he goes, "Holy shit!" Like he was not expecting that. And I went down for 4 stolen firearms, 1 firearm with obliterated. I had a sawed-off shotgun with a. What am I gonna do with a sawed-off shotgun, dude?
Shoot somebody, dude. That's what sawed-off shotguns are for. Shooting people.
Oh well, I forgot. This is so I had gotten the reason, and this is really what God puts signs in your life, like it's time to stop, dude. So I was delivering pizza, and at the night this happened. No, I wasn't sober, so that's a lie. The night this happened, though, I was delivering pizza. It was 11:00 at night, and on LSU, Louisiana State University campus, I pull up to an apartment complex. I'm getting the pizza out, and someone runs up, puts a gun on my back, and 3 dudes descend on me. I'm like, all right, I'm getting robbed. And they take all my shit. And then I was like, okay, so now what? And they're like, oh, we got something for your motherfucking ass. And I was like, what? And they led me behind a dumpster and had me lay face down and fucking cocked it. And I was like, oh my God, this is how I die. And then just pistol whipped me in the back of the head and knocked me out. But I was like, holy shit, this is it. Oh, so I got really bad PTSD from that. So that's what started me having guns everywhere. So I get arrested and go to East Baton Rouge Parish Prison, which is everybody just Google that place. It is wretched. South Louisiana prison, just the worst. I did see, you know who Mystical is?
No.
The rapper?
No.
Ah, dang. Well, I did see Mystical. Maybe some of y'all know who he is. I served Mystical mashed potatoes. That was pretty cool. So at this point in my life, before this, I think I had forgotten how to talk to God. I wasn't sure I even believed. I was trying to not believe in God anymore, and I wound up in prison. And I had these 3 spiritual experiences that just rocked my world and really brought me back into recovery. I'll just go over the first one really quick. How are we looking on time?
Fine, dude.
Okay. So it's so funny how trivial it sounds, but it was so heavy. Well, the first one, I don't know how prison operates. And I was about 130 pounds when I went in. Skinny white boy, one of 2 white people on my line. Not good. I had long hair. Not good. Got fucked with very quickly. And I was detoxing off of everything. So I was super hungry, right? So I 2 for 1, which is I borrow 1 snack and I'll owe you 2. So I did that like everybody in my dorm, right? My store ended up not coming in. So long story short, I owe everybody in my dorm money. There's a dude that transferred into our line. He had just got done doing 15 years in maximum security. He liked me, and like some very bad things were fixing to happen, and nobody had my back because I owed everybody money. So I was laying in my bed at night, and I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like when the lights go out, and all I hear is Payne, pack your shit. You're moving lines. And so that was number one. I got transferred out. And I was
my God, dude.
So number one, they moved me into the trustee line where you work in the kitchen, and you work for free. You work 2:30 in the morning till 8 at night, 4 days on, 2 days off. Awful slave labor. It's rough. So you start out in the scully and washing dishes. So you wash 3,500 dishes 3 times a day. Like, which
holy
is
shit.
Rough, dude, by yourself. Like it's a one-man show. It's the worst job. And you work your way up when people leave or do something stupid to get in trouble. The best job was on the serving line. That's just where you just scoop food and that's it. And so I was sitting there about to start washing dishes, and I was like, God, thank you, for getting me here, but I'm really going to need your help, like, to sustain this, because like this is tough. And I swear, not 30 seconds after I did that, the CO, a dude on the serving line, had taken a bite out of a peach and just thrown it back in. And the CO was like, Brumfield, get off the line. Payne, move up. And just shot me to the best job in the kitchen.
Oh, my God.
So I've just never had a prayer directly answered, like ever. I don't think like that. And like I said, it sounds trivial, but this feeling that came over me that there is absolutely nothing you could have told me at that moment that it wasn't God. And I had to run to the bathroom, and I just broke down crying. And I was like, oh my God, like, whoa. And I just felt like it was one of my reborn moments. And then the last thing that happened before I got out was I had the job where you deliver food around the prison, and that gives you access to all the stuff because you can transport stuff for people. And so I would make a little money, like bring in extra food to people, and somebody got them to bring me some extra food, and the payment was like 2 lore tabs because I could go to the medical wing, and I brought them back to him, and he was like, here you go, man, here's your payment. And he was going to give me 1. And I was like, dude, if I cannot stay sober in here, like, I don't think I can stay sober. So I was like, nah, dude, like, you hold on to it. And the next day they drug tested our wing, and that guy got sent to lockdown. I was like, damn. I was like, all right, like, I think I'm on the right path here.
My God.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Wow.
So I got out and stayed sober, and that's not. Well, you would think.
No, I wouldn't. I've done 150 episodes, dude. This ain't the end. All the God shots, they come at you, and still you go back out and fucking dance.
Yep. What happened this time was, so I got out and I'm on probation. I had like all this debt, right? And like God was showing out for me. I had all this crazy debt, and a great aunt that I barely knew I even had died and left me and my sister a bunch of money. And like my mom had known about it for like 2 years and just didn't tell me. And finally, I know. Finally, she was like, okay, you have this money. Da, 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 da. So I got to pay off all my debt. I was like 9 months sober. This is like one of 2 times that God just straight took the obsession away from me. No, I didn't have to do anything. Like I just did not want to use at all. And instead of being grateful and maintaining it, I developed like a real serious porn addiction for like the first time in my life. And I started sleeping around, like treating women like objects and trash. And after that, I started, and I was living in sober living, and this is kind of, I don't want to say commonplace, but it's there. And I started doing the get crazy jacked on caffeine at 11 o'clock at night. It's like, what am I really doing there? Like, started taking pre-workout to go to work, stuff like that. It's like
addict shit.
Straight addict stuff.
Straight addict shit.
And I got my friend, I tried to 12-step my friend to move him into the house, and he introduced me to something called kratom. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Never.
So it's like this head shop thing. It's a plant that's kind of like an opiate, but I didn't know that at the time. And it doesn't show up on drug tests. So I find myself doing this legal drug for a couple months, and then we get caught and kicked out. And I went to the bar the next day with him, and we ordered a beer. And I looked at the beer and I was like, what am I even doing? I said, I'm not even kidding myself. And I left the beer and I went and called my dope dealer. I was like, this is stupid. Like, what? I'm really going to think that I'm going to moderate anymore. Like, I don't.
It's go time.
Yeah. I was like, and I had all this money again. And, so I was telling my mom that I was still living at the halfway house. And, I held up that lie until I had a quote year sober, and because she was holding my money, so I had to call her to get it and stuff. And things just got really bad on IV meth again, and same old story, except this time I'm on probation. That's what I'd gotten from my charges was 5 years probation and a 10 years federal suspended sentence, right? So if I screwed up, I'm going away for 10 years. And so that started this fear cycle of like, oh shit, I relapsed and I can't stop and I don't want to go to jail. So then I would just run to rehab and call my PO from rehab and be like, hey, I screwed up, but I'm in rehab, so we're good, right? Like insurance had been run out. So I'm going to these really rough state funded work release camps and not good places. But in 2013, I think that Christmas, I went to this really hardcore place, one of like last stop rehabs, and had 4 months clean, got out, went to a halfway house, was relatively doing the deal. And I met, that's when I met my now wife. She was in another, it was sober house love. It was halfway house love. So this is how it's a good story. She loves how I tell it. Like, this is how I asked her out. Like, I started, like any relationship, I started Facebook stalking her, right?
Of course.
And but I was like, oh, she has a boyfriend. And I was standing outside of a meeting that we were both at, and I was listening to her conversation, and she was like, oh, yeah, I just broke up with my boyfriend. And I was like, whoosh, and I just ran over, and I was like, hey, do you want to like be my movie buddy or something? I need someone to watch a movie with.
Oh my God.
Hey, whatever, man.
Whatever works, dude.
It worked. All right. Slick.
It's very slick. It works if they want it to work.
Exactly.
They know exactly what the fuck you're doing.
And you know, I think I said it a little more. She's probably listening and laughing her ass off. I'm sure it wasn't more smooth than that.
Oh, no. It was something like, hey, so you want to be like my movie buddy?
You want to be my movie buddy?
Oh, dude, that's fucking awesome.
So we start dating, and I remember I relapsed, but now I've got this girlfriend who's sober, and I don't want to tell her. And I pick her up from work one night, and she says, hey, I got to tell you something. And I was like, what? And she was like, I relapsed. And I was like, well, do you have any more? And so that started us using together. And oh man, I think we looked on our Instagrams the other day to see it. And in like a 90-day period, we went to rehab together this time 3 times. We started, together we were just awful. Like, we started the relationship both with full-time jobs and a place to live. And in one time, it was in 29 days, we were getting evicted because we didn't have $320 between the two of us. In 29 days. So it was like, it wasn't going well.
No.
And this is where, like, finally, I think this is what helped me get sober, is because this last time there really wasn't, well, I say that, but we were just homeless we would panhandle enough money to get gas, to drive to Walmart, to steal movies, to take to FYE, to sell, to get money, to get high, to go panhandle. And like, that was my fucking life.
Wow.
You know?
Jesus. Rock bottom.
Rock bottom, dude. No, at this point, no one is talking to me. Nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit. And so we decided to go to treatment again. She goes first, like she always does, because I can suffer a little longer than she can. And it was my birthday, and it was August 26th. It was the day after my birthday, and she always says, like, because we would share our dope, and she's like, well, when you go, make sure you do, you don't have to do all of it. And I'm like, yeah, of course. And so, of course, the day after my birthday, that was my last overdose, and I did it while I was driving, apparently, stopped in the middle of the road, like on a busy street. And this was my last, like, God punch that, like, you need to go get help, because I had a gram of heroin sitting on the gear shift that you have to use. And a police officer drove my car off the road. And when I got out of the hospital, the dope was still there. So and he had to have seen it, or I don't know, either he saw it and had pity or just didn't see it by some reason. So I was like, okay, like this, I gotta go. So I drove to Lafayette, Louisiana, got into treatment with everything I owned fitting into a car that I had a title loan on. No money, still on probation, girlfriend in rehab. And I was like, I don't even know if I can get sober, but let's try it again. And 60 days into it, feeling good, doing good. My girlfriend's doing good. And she gets out. She's at a halfway house, and she calls me one day and breaks up with me while I'm in treatment. And I walked outside and I punched a wall and broke my hand. And they had just given me back my driver's license. So I was like, I'm leaving. I'm going to the hospital. I'm getting some pain pills. Fuck this. And I was given a moment of clarity, and I was like, whoa, that's how easy I'm willing to do this all over again. Like, in a second, I was like, fuck it. And I was like, this is like, I am sick. And so I went in my room and just hashed it out with God. And that's the moment I point to when I really surrendered. And I was like, I don't know how to stay sober. And been clean since then.
That is fucking amazing, dude. That is, that's a story. And I remember when we did our interview, we kind of touched on it a little bit. And that's when I was like, dude, I got to get you on the fucking show. Because it baffles the imagination, the level of insanity, and more importantly, not just the insanity aspect of it, but just how much control the addiction has on us.
Oh, man.
It talks to us, it controls us, it manipulates us, it lies to us. It's just this constant being that is surrounding us at all times, and just every move we make, it's just trying to counter. It's trying to figure out how to get back in there and just fuck you over. And I was just like, listening to your story going, dude, the craziness is beyond belief. And not only that, there was one part where you were talking about how you were doing well, you were dealing drugs, and everything was cool, right? You had some money, and you had some friends, and you were trying to work the program, and you were feeling fantastic. And there was this feeling that you were getting over. That's the thing about us. When we get over, it's a high. Everything that we do that goes contrary to what we know of as today as spiritual principles and values, when we're able to circumvent that successfly, dude, that's a high.
Oh, yeah.
That's a high. And there you are, circumvent. I'm dealing drugs, and I'm going to meetings, and I'm working a program. I'm doing it all. I figured out a way to do what other people can't because I'm special.
Yes.
And it's always that I need to wear that hat of I'm fucking special. And the reality is you're just wearing a dunce cap. Because it's got you. It's got you exactly where it needs to have you.
Oh, and I forgot and I say that I got sober, like I didn't do anything, and I forgot so me and my girlfriend, we're now married, and she has her sobriety dates 2 days before mine. And when, which I don't necessarily recommend. And I tell people, what we did is we stopped being physical for the first 2 months. We went to relationship therapy. She worked her program, I worked mine, and that was like the most important thing. And like we didn't, which is a shocker this day, but we didn't even live together until we got married, which is crazy. Like,
not for us.
That's how we made it work, right?
Well, it makes sense. It makes sense because, when you go outside of your own thinking, when you ask for suggestions, you take those suggestions and you seek that outside help, right, to assure that you're going in the right direction, then that's also part of the spiritual element. That's part of bringing God into the mix. I go to somebody else and I say, hey, listen, I don't know how to do this. I need help, right?
Yeah.
That's connecting with higher power.
Absolutely.
That's what it is. When I'm by myself going, I think I got this. And I think if I turn left here and then turn right over here and then put this over here and then light this up, dude, we're good. We're golden.
Yeah, we're golden.
You're the fucking, the mad scientist. It's always the mad scientist, regardless of whether it's porn addiction or it's food addiction or it's sex addiction or it's drugs and alcohol, whatever the case may be. Once we remove the connection between ourselves and the people that can help us the most, right? We also remove the spiritual element. That's what most of us don't get. When you're on your own, you've disconnected not just from the community, but you've connected from spirit.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much you pray, man. It knows it's got you. It knows it's got you, right? And so that's the crazy thing, dude. So now there's, you guys, you make it. How long you guys been married now?
We just made a little over a year.
Okay, so you guys have been married for a year. So, and you got 3 years. You've got 3 years clean and sober. You've been married successfully for over a year. You've done all the things that you were supposed to do. You dodged about 3,700 bullets, right? You've developed an incredible connection with a higher power. When does the idea for church and other drugs come into play?
So I think that was the cool story with that too is my co-host was the guy that I had my first awakening drug experience with way back in middle school, right? But he got sober 8 years ago and has been trying to 12-step me ever since. And so he was a big part of me getting sober again this time. And I'd gotten a job working outside by myself where I could just listen to headphones. And I got into listening to podcasts for the first time because I didn't even really know what that was. And after a while, me and Jay were just like, yeah, let's just start a podcast because, well, I had the idea and they don't believe me, but like I had the idea. I was like, I want to tell war stories, like, or at least like do like a comedy thing. And then my friend was like, oh, you mean like Dopey? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like Dopey? And
you didn't even hear, you hadn't heard about Dopey, had you?
No, dude, I hadn't. And I listened to it and I was like, sons of bitches, right?
It's funny you said that because as soon as you said that, I go, wait a minute, that sounds like Dopey.
Yes, dude, I was so pissed. But so me and my friend, we lived in this weird space where we were both members of Alcoholics Anonymous. We were both Christians. We didn't quite fit into the typical Christian mold, though. And, you can't talk about specific. We had issues with AA. We had issues with church. We also think church should be like AA, and there's parts of AA that need the church. And so we're like, well, let's form this meeting of the minds and just have some good discussion. And we didn't even really expect it to be like a helpful thing at first. We were just kind of being entertaining, and we just quickly learned that that we had stumbled upon a good little niche. And I just through the myriad of treatment centers I've been to, I have this endless list of really good friends that have crazier stories than I do. So I just get them on to tell their stories, man.
How is that even possible?
Dude, I've met people that have shot themselves in the face with a shotgun and they're still alive. Like loco stuff.
I actually do know one. That made it. It's unbelievable.
That's insane.
It is
Yeah.
insane, dude. That's another God thing, you know. I was just talking to Chris and Dave today, just out of the blue. Yeah, they called me out of the blue today. As a matter of fact, they were just. Chris is like, I saw you online, so I just called you. It's like, dude, you guys are out of your fucking minds.
I love them.
Oh no, they're great. They're great. And it was funny because I remember when they asked me to be on their show, and I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting. Dopey. What a fucking name, right? And then I go and I listen to it and I go, I'm not going to be on this fucking show. This fucking shenanigans. This is unbelievable. Like I was like almost offended. Right? Actually, I was offended. And I remember for a while. And then I was quitting the gambling business.
That's right.
I was getting out of the gambling business and I go, you know what? You need to stop being a self-righteous asshole, you know? And so I hit those guys up and they're like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's do this. And then I got on there and just tore it up, man. I was just like,
I know. That's what I'm saying.
I'm just going to let this all out and let it go because I need to.
You brought the debauch.
Yeah, I did. I went, and it felt fantastic, you know?
Doesn't it?
And since then, we've been great friends. I had them on the show. We had a spectacular time on an interview. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that what we've discovered, we've all stumbled on this accidentally. You know, they did,
yeah.
You did, I did. It was all accidental that we just decided that, I know, I'm just going to do a recovery podcast. And then what happens is, you know, as you go along and you get a few of these moments where people are inspired by it and you get these emails from people going, dude, thank you so much for this podcast. You helped me so much. And you're like, whoa, like, man, okay. Now I know why I'm doing this.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really cool that like now it's like, it's just so crazy to me that like I'm friends with this dude in Costa Rica and these two dudes in upstate New York. And it's just like, you know, like it's just life is, that's what the coolest thing about sobriety is. I was telling a kid this today. It's like when I was using, I can tell you with absolute certainty what I am doing today, tomorrow, the next day, the day before. I can tell you that. But with sobriety, I have no idea what can happen tomorrow. And it's awesome.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
uncertainty has become so valuable, right?
Oh,
you know,
so
we you know, for so long, I guess the inevitable truth of what inevitably could happen to us if we continue down this road, right? Like you said a few times, mentioned in your story, how dark the places that you got, how dark they were and how bleak it was, right? And so, and how many times you tried to commit suicide. Yeah. Because what you saw was like, it's going to happen anyway. So why don't I just end the chaos and the pain and the wreckage and the suffering? The suffering, I think, is the key word there. You know, let me just end the suffering right now. And then you get sober. And of course, at first, there is that uncertainty of what recovery is going to bring, which ultimately you teeter-totter for a while and you relapse and this and this and that. But then you have a few spiritual awakenings and you're like, you know what? I think I'm done manning the ship. I think I'm done. Right? I think I'm just going to let go here, right? And I'm just going to keep moving forward doing this stuff because this is bringing some amazing results. And I'll just worry about taking action and leave the results in God's hands. That's an amazing way to live, dude.
That's what's up.
That is absolutely what's up. So what's the big plans then for church and other drugs? Or do you have a big plan? Or, you know, are you just coasting right now? Like how many episodes you guys got?
We're on 56 right now. So we're just, we're
so you just passed a year.
Yeah. Just past a year, just steady growing. And I think we finally, a while ago, I feel like we hit our stride, man. And just having fun and helping people at the same time, man. It's really, and like just on a selfish personal level, getting to have some really badass conversations and talk about stuff that I want to talk about and just stuff I'm interested in. It's just cool, man.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm so engrossed in recovery, right, on a daily. for any number of reasons. It's either me on a podcast interview, or me being interviewed, or me being in the SHAiR, Facebook community it's got over 4,000 people in it. You know what I mean? Like, the recovery is just a constant, right? Like, I don't think ever about getting high. You know what I mean? I can't remember the last time I was like, oh God, I really need a meeting. I really need a meeting. I go because I have this routine of like a Tuesday night men's meeting that I go to, a Saturday morning AA meeting that I go to in Escazú, right? I have weekly interviews, and I have this routine of recovery that keeps me very centered. So, it's funny when, if I stop to think about it, I go, wow, when was the last time I had an urge to use? Right. And it's like, wow, I can't remember. And that's a beautiful place to be, man. I mean, that's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah.
For
sure.
So let's start shutting it down. And let's start. And the way I like to close down is for the newcomers. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions about your early recovery, and I want you to respond with inspiring answers you can share with our newcomers. Are you ready?
All right. Sounds good.
Let's do this. All right. So number 1, what was keeping you from getting clean or staying clean when you first got introduced to recovery?
Reservations, man. It was still fun. in my sick little way, dude. The consequences of not taking a drink had not yet outweighed the consequences of taking a drink.
Yeah. That reminds me of what you were saying too earlier about the chronic relapsing and overdosing and the attention seeking, and how that played such a huge role. You were addicted to the attention. Yeah. And as long as you were in a relapse cycle, working. And so all this attention, and then as soon as you're better, everybody just goes away. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of that. I notice a lot of that even in like the Facebook group. There's that relapse, and they go, and then all of a sudden you get like 30, 40 posts. Right? You can do this. Yep. You're all right, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end, they're like, thank you guys. And I'm going to do it this time. And I'm going to go to a meeting. And then a week goes by. They get forgotten about. 2 weeks later, I did it again. And that's all they write.
And that was me, man.
Yeah.
And not that there's anything wrong with that. But for me. And it's because, and every time I do my fear inventory, my number 1 root of everything is my fear of being alone, man. And that's what that comes down to.
Yes. And I think that, I wanted to emphasize that. Because some people are going to listen to this, like some of the people that are in the group, and they go like, fucking man, he's talking about me.
Yeah, no, you're
asshole.
You're totally cool, man.
But you know what I mean? Like, guys, listen to this interview. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm calling you out. I'm calling you out. I know what you're doing. You're attention seeking. You love it. Every time I go in there and I post about how I relapsed, everybody comes to my rescue and tells me how, you can do this, keep moving forward, instead of actually taking the suggestions that are provided. Yeah. Because after 3 years, right, and thousands of members in the group, right, there's very few posts in there where relapse is part of the process. You know what I mean? It's more like, hey, it happens. I hear you, right? But here, let's go. Here's what we did. Let's follow along this path. So anyway, enough with me, guys. I don't mean to offend. I love you guys, but I know what you're doing. All right. So number 2, at what point did you have a spiritual awakening, that aha moment in recovery, when you accepted that you were powerless over drugs and alcohol, but for the first time had developed the hope that you could recover?
Probably that. I mean, I've had a bunch, but probably I'll use the most recent one of what happened at rehab when I broke my hand, and I had that moment of clarity that I do not want to get high anymore, and that I actually think I can. Things really did change from that experience. From then, like my outlook on the world was vastly different.
It's amazing how those moments, right? Some of those are so powerful, right? And it's in that moment where you're like, holy shit. This is the exact moment where I fuck up my life, and I'm not going to do it this time. And I'm not going to do. I love it. All right. Do you have any favorite book you would recommend to a newcomer you read in early recovery?
Ooh, I really like everything Nick Sheff did, especially the one about his relapse. We All Fall Down. He did Crank. You ever read that?
The movie Crank? Or
no.
There's a book named Crank?
Yeah. Or fuck, is it Crank or Tweak? I think it's Crank.
I don't know. I saw a movie Crank. It was terrible.
Yeah, well,
It was terrible.
It's called We All Fall Down by Nick Sheff.
Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. And number 4, what is the best suggestion you have ever received?
Ooh. Geez. That's a freaking tough one. Probably that you don't have to use if you don't want to.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Which is, it's such a simple cliche.
But if you think about it, it's like, oh, I don't like, because there are times, yeah. I mean, once you're placed in a position of neutrality, that is, you are free. You have a choice, man. You don't. It's not like these days I don't have to worry about screwing up my life anymore. Like I don't have to do that like I used to have to.
Beautiful. Okay, finally, number 5. If you could give our newcomers only one suggestion, what would it be?
Give yourself an actual chance to see if you like being sober, at least a year, and just commit to that year, your job being, I'm going to get sober. And like, that's what I had to do. And I made it a 2-year commitment. And I was like, I worked a minimum wage job, man. And things happened so much quicker than 2 years, but it was that commitment of like this, I'm going to take this time to just get sober. And that's enough.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I did the same thing. I said, I'm going to give myself a year. And if I don't get anything out of this thing,
because you can always go back.
Yeah. You don't realize nobody, right, who hasn't done this yet has any idea the power of 1 year clean.
Oh, that's what, and I would always say, man, I tried being sober. I hated it because it was like, 2 months, dude, you're barely detoxed. Yep. Like that does not, not that too much isn't something special, but I'm saying like, give it some real time for some real miracles to happen.
Absolutely. So Jed, please tell us and tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you and find your podcast.
Yeah, I do always say if anybody ever needs any help, we're at churchandotherDrugs@gmail.com, always available, and find us on iTunes, Spotify, all the usual podcast avenues, and churchandotherdrugs.com.
All right, Jed, thank you so much, man, for those great suggestions, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Oh, and everybody check out Church and Other Drugs.
Perfect. Beautiful. All right, we have now reached the end of our show. Thanks for joining us. And as we say here in Costa Rica, pura vida.
Pura vida.
Thank you for joining us on the SHAiR Recovery Podcast. To check out the show notes page on this interview or to thank our guests for sharing their story, go to www.theshairpodcast.com. While you're on the website, don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter to stay up to date on the latest news, podcasts, and interviews. Want to be one of our guests and share your story? Then go to our website and click on the Share Your Story button. We share our inspiring recovery stories every Tuesday, so subscribe to our show on iTunes or Stitcher Radio to get your free weekly download. We'll see you then. The opinions shared on this show reflect those of the individual speaker and not of any 12-Step Fellowship as a whole. And though we discuss 12-Step recovery and the impact it had in our lives, we do not promote or endorse any 12-Step Anonymous program.